Unaware of her husband's $100 million inheritance, Vanessa Ward stood in the same kitchen where he once fixed her morning coffee. Only now the man she called useless sat in a wheelchair, his once steady hands trembling as she packed her bags to leave. The house smelled of rain and medicine. The walls still carried the sound of laughter from the years when love was easy, before the accident stole his strength and her loyalty. She told herself she was done feeding a cripple, that she deserved better. And somewhere outside, her lover waited in a sleek black car, promising her a new life. But as the door closed behind her, Marcus Ward's gaze fell on a letter his late uncle had left behind, a sealed document that would change everything. Inside it lay the truth Vanessa never cared to ask about. He wasn't the broken man she abandoned, but the hidden heir to a $100 million empire and the silent owner of the same company her new lover worked for. He stayed quiet that night, but something behind his calm eyes shifted. Not anger, not grief, something colder. Because while she celebrated freedom, he was already building a storm she wouldn't see coming. What happens when betrayal meets fortune? When the man she mocked as crippled becomes the one person powerful enough to crush her completely? When Vanessa Ward walked out of her husband's life, she thought she was escaping poverty, leaving behind a crippled man who could barely feed himself. She told everyone Marcus was finished, that love couldn't survive on broken legs and unpaid bills. But what she didn't know was that the man she just divorced had secretly inherited a $100 million empire, and that the same company her new lover bragged about working for belonged to the husband she threw away. What Marcus did next didn't just expose her betrayal, it crushed her completely, in a way no one in Dallas would ever forget. The evening light slanted through the wide glass windows of the Ward's suburban home, gilding everything in an amber hush that felt almost sacred. The house smelled faintly of cedar and lemon polish. Marcus had paid for the cleaning service even after his accident, as if keeping up appearances could hold their life together a little longer. Vanessa moved briskly across the living room, tossing silk blouses into a pale blue suitcase. Each thud of fabric sounded like punctuation at the end of a chapter. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, deliberate, rehearsed. Marcus sat near the window in his wheelchair, his hands folded on his lap, a wool blanket draped over his legs. The faint hum of the evening news played from a television he wasn't really watching. Every now and then, he glanced toward the stairs, where he knew his 9-year-old son was pretending to read a comic book, listening to every sound. "Vanessa," he said quietly, "we can talk about this tomorrow. You don't have to go tonight." She didn't look at him. "I've been talking about this for months, Marcus. You've been sitting there waiting for a miracle that never comes. The bills are overdue, the cars are gone, your company's dead. What exactly am I staying for?" He turned his gaze toward the polished floor, seeing his reflection fractured by the marble veins. "You're staying for the vows we made. For Jordan." "Jordan will be fine," she snapped. "He needs stability, not a father who can't stand on his own feet." The words cut deeper than she realized. A flash of the accident crossed his mind. The screech of tires, the child darting into the road, the impact, the sharp scent of burning oil. That single moment had taken his legs but left him alive. Alive long enough to watch everything else die slowly. Vanessa zipped her suitcase with a clean, final sound. "Adrian says he'll help me get back on my feet. He has connections, a real future. You can't even feed yourself anymore." Marcus's voice stayed level, but the veins in his forearm tightened against the blanket. "Adrian Cole?" She froze, half turning. For a moment, guilt flickered in her eyes. Then pride replaced it. "At least he's not afraid to move on." Marcus looked past her, through the window where the dying sunlight fell across the driveway. "Be careful who you call your future," he said softly. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Don't make this dramatic." She lifted the suitcase, then paused as if remembering something trivial. "I'll send someone for the rest of my things." From the staircase, a small voice wavered. "Mom?" Jordan stood there clutching his comic book, confusion and dread fighting on his face. Vanessa forced a brittle smile. "Sweetheart, Mommy just needs a little space." The boy looked at Marcus, then at her. "Are you coming back?" She hesitated a heartbeat too long. "Of course, baby. Go upstairs." When he vanished around the corner, Marcus let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he was holding. You think money fixes emptiness, Vanessa. It doesn't. You'll find that out. She exhaled sharply, swinging her bag over her shoulder. And you think love fills an empty fridge. Goodbye, Marcus. The door slammed. The echo lingered long after the sound died. Outside, tires crunched on gravel. Through the curtain gap, Marcus watched a sleek black sedan pull away. Adrian's. He could see their silhouettes inside. Vanessa's laughter, Adrian's hand brushing hers. For a long time, Marcus didn't move. The house felt cavernous, stripped of its rhythm. He wheeled himself toward his desk, the one piece of furniture untouched by dust. On it lay a thick envelope he hadn't opened for weeks. His late uncle's attorney had sent it before the accident. His fingers brushed the seal, hesitant. He had ignored it, assuming it was another condolence letter, another reminder of what he'd lost. Tonight, the silence pressed harder. He slid a letter opener through the edge. The paper inside bore the emblem of Ward Technologies Group, embossed in deep blue. The first line read, "As the sole surviving blood relative of Harold Ward, you are entitled to assume full control of all corporate holdings and assets effective immediately." Marcus stared at the words. For a moment, he thought his vision had blurred, but it was real. The inheritance his uncle had hinted about years ago, the one he'd dismissed as family rumor, was now in his hands. Outside, thunder murmured beyond the hills. Somewhere between the past and the future, a new sound stirred inside him. Not bitterness, not triumph, but clarity. He folded the letter carefully and set it on the desk beside a framed family photo. Vanessa's arm around him, Jordan on his knee, smiles full of promise. He turned the frame face down. From upstairs came the creak of a door and the soft padding of small feet. Jordan stood at the edge of the living room, eyes wet. "Dad, is Mom gone for real?" Marcus wheeled toward him, forcing a faint smile. "She needs time, buddy, but we're going to be okay." The boy nodded, trusting. He didn't see the shadow in his father's eyes, the look of a man realizing that the world had just handed him not only fortune, but power. Marcus reached for the lamp, switching it off. The room sank into half darkness. Somewhere in the distance, the city lights began to shimmer. He whispered to himself, almost a vow. "You walked away from a cripple, Vanessa. One day you'll kneel before the man you left behind." The storm broke, rain whispering against the glass as the scene faded to black. Morning crept into the Ward residence like a stranger, quiet, unwelcome, carrying reminders of what used to be. The scent of Vanessa's perfume still lingered in the hall, sharp and floral, a ghost of her presence clinging to the wall she once decorated with obsessive precision. The empty spot where her wedding portrait had hung was a pale square against the paint. Marcus sat in the kitchen, the envelope from his uncle resting on the table beside an untouched cup of coffee. His reflection shimmered faintly on the black granite counter. Tired eyes, 3 days stubble, the hollow face of a man who'd been abandoned, not for what he did, but for what he no longer could. He remembered the day Vanessa first visited him in the hospital. The world had been blurred then, a haze of morphine and fluorescent light. She had worn a red coat, carried roses, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd whispered, "You'll get better soon, baby." But her grip had loosened each week after. By the time he came home in a wheelchair, she'd already stopped touching him. A knock echoed at the front door. Marcus wheeled himself over and opened it to find Evelyn Grant, the Ward family's longtime attorney. She wore a gray tailored suit, her expression calm but probing. "I wasn't sure you'd call me," she said softly, stepping inside. Marcus gestured toward the living room. "You came anyway." "I came because Harold Ward left you an empire, Marcus, and because he predicted you'd be too decent to use it." She set a leather briefcase on the table and opened it. "This isn't just money. It's controlling interest in Ward Technologies Group. You now own 36 subsidiaries, real estate, tech development, engineering contracts, 100 million in assets." Marcus stared at her. "I didn't earn that. He had cousins." "They're gone," Evelyn interrupted gently. "You're all that's left of the Ward bloodline. Harold wanted someone who understood struggle, not privilege." He glanced toward the frame photo lying face down on the mantel. "You think a cripple can run an empire?" Evelyn didn't flinch. Your uncle once built his first firm from a hospital bed after a back injury. The question isn't if you can, it's when you'll decide to. Marcus said nothing. Rain still tapped softly at the windows, the steady rhythm almost hypnotic. Evelyn drew out another document. Your inheritance remains confidential until you authorize disclosure. If you wish, I'll keep your name off the record. Sometimes it's wiser to let people show their true colors first. Her words hung in the air like prophecy. Marcus looked down at his hands, scarred, trembling slightly, but steady enough to hold a pen. Keep it quiet, he said. Let everyone believe I'm still broke. Evelyn nodded. I'll manage everything from the corporate side. You focus on recovery. When she left, the silence returned, but it no longer felt suffocating. It felt charged, alive, as if the house itself sensed a shift. Marcus rolled toward the study where the faint smell of motor oil and burnt metal still lingered from his workshop days. His blueprints for an eco-efficient building model still hung on the wall, curling with dust. Vanessa had once called them a hobby that would never pay the bills. He looked at them now with different eyes. Jordan came downstairs rubbing his eyes. Dad, can I have cereal? Of course, buddy. Marcus helped as best he could, guiding the boy through the motions. As Jordan poured milk, Marcus caught his reflection in the glass cabinet behind him. Two lives mirrored, one small, trusting, one scarred, but newly aware of his purpose. That night after Jordan fell asleep, Marcus sat by the window again. Dallas glittered in the distance, the skyline humming with 1,000 ambitions. Somewhere in those towers, Adrian Cole's office lights would still be on. Marcus remembered how Adrian used to visit the house for project meetings, how his laughter always lingered a second too long around Vanessa. He'd once trusted the man completely. Now every memory replayed like slow footage from a crime scene. He wheeled closer to his desk and began writing on a notepad. To do, contact physical therapy clinic, request Ward Technologies corporate audit, review Harold's executive roster, observe Adrian Cole quietly. He underlined the last one twice. Sometime after midnight, he powered on his laptop and searched Ward Technologies' public records. Adrian's name appeared under Senior Project Manager, Dallas Division. There were rumors of missing funds, complaints filed by subcontractors, and a pending investigation Evelyn had mentioned months earlier. A small smile crossed Marcus's lips. Grim, deliberate. He clicked open a new folder and titled it Restoration. The next morning, he met Olivia Grant, the physical therapist Evelyn had recommended. She arrived with quiet confidence, the kind of person who understood resilience more than pity. I work better when my patients fight back, she said with a faint grin. Think you're ready to stop feeling sorry for yourself? Marcus looked at her, the corner of his mouth twitching. You have no idea how ready I am. Weeks passed, muscles strengthened. Every session hurt, but pain had stopped meaning weakness. It had become proof of life. Vanessa never called. Adrian never checked in, but Marcus stopped expecting them to. One night, as he practiced standing beside the rail in his living room, thunder rolled outside again, the same rhythm as the night she left. Lightning flashed across the framed blueprints, illuminating his reflection. For a second, he saw himself standing tall again. Not yet real, but inevitable. He steadied himself on the rail and whispered, I'll walk again. And when I do, I'll walk into every room they think they own. The city's lights blinked in silent reply, as if promising him that fate was already listening. Dallas gleamed beneath a cold January morning. The city skyline cut sharply against the pale blue, its towers reflecting sunlight like silver blades. Inside a glass office on the 22nd floor of Ward Technologies Group, Marcus Ward watched the world he once built from the sidelines. A world he now owned in silence. Evelyn's arrangements had been flawless. His name didn't appear anywhere. Not in the company database, not in the shareholders list, not even in the annual filings. To the outside world, Ward Technologies was still under a dormant trust pending review. In truth, every signature, every transfer, every power decision passed through Marcus. He sat in the office in a dark wool coat, his wheelchair near the corner window overlooking the streets below. Across the desk, Evelyn adjusted her glasses, flipping through a series of documents. "I've completed your request," she said. "Adrian Cole's spending habits, recent promotions, and personal accounts." Marcus leaned forward, his fingers brushing over the report's header. "How bad?" "Bad enough," she replied. "He's been funneling contract bonuses into ghost vendors. 3 of them linked directly to a bank account under Vanessa's name." The air in the room shifted, like static before a storm. Marcus stared out the window for a long moment. "So he's not only stealing from the company," he murmured. "He's letting her be the accomplice." "She might not even know," Evelyn said carefully. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Oh, she knows. Vanessa never signed anything without knowing what it was worth." Evelyn hesitated. "Do you want me to freeze the accounts?" "Not yet," Marcus said. "I want the hole deeper before we pull the ground out." She nodded, understanding the tone beneath the calm, a restrained fury sharper than rage. Later that evening, Marcus returned home to find Jordan at the kitchen table, working on a science project. The boy's eyes brightened when he saw him. "Dad, Ms. Olivia says you stood without the bars today." Marcus smiled faintly. "Almost. Next time I'll surprise her." "Can we go to the park when you can walk again?" Jordan asked. Marcus looked down at the project. A model of a suspension bridge, glued together with imperfect lines and childlike determination. "We will," he said softly. "We'll build our own bridge too, one that doesn't break." The boy didn't understand the layers in his father's voice, but the promise lingered in the air. Across town, Vanessa stood in front of a full-length mirror in Adrian's penthouse. The walls were all glass and marble, the kind of luxury she used to dream about while cooking dinner in the old house. Now she had it, and yet the reflection staring back at her didn't look satisfied. She smoothed a silk gown across her body, admiring the fit, but her eyes stayed distant. "Does this look okay for the gala?" she asked. Adrian, sprawled on the sofa, barely looked up from his phone. "You'll look fine, babe. Just don't embarrass me like last time when you mispronounced the chairman's name." Vanessa blinked. "You mean the chairman of Ward Technologies?" "Yeah," Adrian muttered. "Old man Ward's nephew or whoever's taking over. Some lawyer's running it for now, but the heir's in the shadows. Nobody knows who." Her lipstick froze mid-stroke. "Heir," Adrian shrugged. "Word is the company's been transferred to a family trust after Harold Ward died. Probably some Harvard kid overseas." "Why?" She recovered quickly, forcing a smile. "No reason, just curious." But her chest tightened. Ward. The name stirred memories of the man she'd left behind. The man who used to come home covered in grease from his construction projects and talk about eco-tech building prototypes. She used to laugh and call it fancy woodwork. Now she realized those blueprints might have been worth more than she ever imagined. "Hey," Adrian said, standing up, voice dropping. "Don't overthink stuff. You've got me now. We're building a life here." She turned and kissed him, but the taste was hollow. When he left the room, her eyes flickered toward her purse. A joint bank card glinted from inside. The memory of signing some of Adrian's contract papers last month pricked at her mind. She'd never asked what they were. She pushed the thought away. Back in his study, Marcus reviewed an internal memo from Ward Technologies board. Adrian Cole had been recommended for a vice president role. His own employees were unknowingly preparing to promote the man sleeping with his wife. Marcus traced a finger along the signature lines, thinking of Vanessa's laughter the night she left. He could still hear her saying, "Love doesn't pay bills." Now he had more bills than she could imagine, and the power to end her comfort with a single directive. But revenge wasn't his goal yet. Timing was. He closed the folder, stood using the support bar, and took a careful step forward. His body trembled, but his balance held for a full 5 seconds. He exhaled, almost smiling. Outside, lightning flickered over the Dallas skyline, a brief silent flare that reflected against the glass. For an instant, his reflection seemed taller, sharper, as if the universe was showing him who he would become. He whispered to the empty room, "You wanted a man who could feed you, Vanessa. Let's see how hungry you get when the table turns." The rain began again, steady and cold. Somewhere downtown, in an office with her lover's name on the door, the downfall had already started. And none of them even knew the storm had a name. The Cole penthouse glittered 30 stories above downtown Dallas. all chrome edges and glass walls that looked out over a river of city lights. Vanessa twirled before the mirror, the train of her champagne-colored dress sweeping the marble like water. The mirror caught everything. The diamond necklace Adrian had given her last week, the practiced smile, the emptiness just behind it. Music pulsed from the next room. A handful of executives from Ward Technologies Group filled the space, sipping aged bourbon, laughing too loudly. Adrian moved among them like a shark in a tailored suit, shaking hands, talking about new contracts and the Dubai expansion. He called it networking. Vanessa called it the price of staying relevant. She drifted toward the balcony, the winter air cool against her collarbone. Down below, the city roared. Traffic, horns, the life she'd always wanted to be part of. Yet beneath the glitter, something in her gut wouldn't quiet. Ward Technologies. Every time someone said the name, it rang like a faint echo of Marcus's voice. She told herself it was coincidence. The world was full of wards. Inside, Adrian raised a toast. To promotions that finally pay what we're worth. The men laughed. Vanessa forced one too, but her glass trembled. A flash memory hit her. Marcus bent over blueprints at their kitchen table years ago, talking about sustainable materials that could revolutionize building design. She'd barely listened, scrolling through decor blogs on her phone. Now those same ecotech designs were the backbone of Ward Technologies' new billion-dollar contracts. She pushed the thought away before it could sting. After midnight, when the last guest left, Adrian loosened his tie and collapsed on the couch. Next quarter, I'll be vice president. Then we'll buy the lake house in Austin. Vanessa curled beside him, smiling thinly. You really think they'll give you VP? He smirked. The board loves me. The interim CEO's a ghost. No one's even seen him. Whoever runs the trust signs everything Evelyn Grant approves, and she approves whatever I send her. Vanessa blinked. Evelyn Grant. Yeah, some older lawyer who acts like she owns the place. You'd think she was protecting royalty. Vanessa laughed softly, but her chest tightened. Evelyn Grant had been the attorney who handled Marcus's uncle's estate. She remembered signing condolence cards after Harold Ward's funeral. Remembered Marcus sitting silently that week, unread letters piling up on his desk. Her smile faltered. You ever meet this CEO? No one has, Adrian said, pouring himself another drink. Rumor is he's some disabled heir they keep hidden. Doesn't matter. Once I'm VP, I'll be the one running everything. Vanessa kissed him to silence the unease. The taste of whiskey and arrogance filled her mouth. A few miles away, inside a quiet office overlooking the same skyline, Marcus stood, truly stood, for the first time unaided in nearly a year. His right leg shook, but he held himself upright, hands braced against the desk. Olivia, his physical therapist, watched from the doorway, eyes shining. You just broke your own record, she said. Marcus smiled, sweat tracing down his temple. Feels different tonight. It should, you're getting stronger. He sat back, breathless but satisfied. On the screen behind him glowed a live feed of Ward Technologies' financial dashboard. Every contract Adrian touched, every expense filed, every inconsistency, highlighted in red. Evelyn had given him full access through a secure channel that only she and Harold Ward once used. Marcus clicked open the most recent transaction report. Adrian's expense sheet showed a $70,000 consultation fee paid to Cole Associates LLC, a shell company registered 2 months ago. Vanessa's name appeared as secondary signatory. Olivia glanced at the numbers. You're smiling. Because every lie leaves a trail, Marcus said. They just don't realize who's following it. He closed the laptop and leaned back, the city lights painting silver patterns across his face. Tomorrow I'll make my first appearance at headquarters. Quietly. Olivia hesitated. Are you ready for that? To face them? He nodded slowly. I'm not going to face them. I'm going to remind them whose name is on the door. The next afternoon, Ward Technologies buzzed with rumors. The mysterious owner of the company's trust was visiting under confidentiality protocol. Adrian strutted through the lobby, more curious than cautious, eager to impress whoever this investor might be. He had no idea that behind the mirrored conference room glass, Marcus watched him approach, cane steady in his hand. Evelyn stood beside him. He doesn't recognize you yet. We kept your return off every internal memo. Marcus adjusted his cufflinks. Good. Let him show off before we take the floor out. Adrian entered, flashing his trademark grin. Welcome to Ward Technologies. I'm Adrian Cole, Senior Project Manager. If there's anything you need... Marcus turned slowly, eyes calm, voice even. You've already given me everything I need, Adrian. For 3 seconds, the room froze. Recognition dawned. The color drained from Adrian's face. Marcus, I thought, dead? Marcus's smile was faint but sharp. Not quite. Evelyn closed the folder she'd been holding. Mr. Ward, shall we proceed with the internal audit schedule? Adrian stammered. You're the heir? Marcus met his gaze. You work for me now, and you've been very busy spending my money. The silence stretched until Adrian's throat clicked. Marcus leaned forward on his cane. Tell Vanessa I said congratulations on the promotion. She finally got her wish. She's living off a man's fortune. She just didn't check whose. When he left the room, the sound of his cane against the floor echoed like a clock counting down. That night, Vanessa stood on the penthouse balcony again, unaware of what had just unfolded downtown. A cold wind swept across the skyline, toppling one of the champagne glasses she'd left on the railing. The crystal shattered at her feet. She flinched at the sound, a sudden chill prickling up her spine. She didn't know yet that the crack she heard wasn't glass. It was the first fracture of her new world beginning to break. A gray dawn settled over Dallas, cool and windless, the kind of morning that looked calm only because the storm hadn't reached the ground yet. In a conference suite 30 floors up, the blinds were drawn halfway, slicing sunlight into narrow bands that fell across rows of executives. Marcus sat at the head of the table, Kane resting beside him, his expression unreadable. Evelyn opened the meeting. Gentlemen, as of this quarter, all expense reports and subcontractor accounts will be reviewed directly through the CEO's office. Irregularities will trigger automatic audits. The room shifted, paper rustling, nervous glances. Adrian kept his smile fixed, though sweat gathered at his collar. The projector screen behind him displayed figures he'd personally doctored. He knew what a real audit would mean. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his tone soft but cutting. Transparency protects everyone. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to fear. Across the table, someone cleared his throat. Sir, are we expanding into Austin next quarter? Marcus nodded. And Kenya. My uncle started the African operations. We're reviving them. His voice caught faintly on the word uncle. A brief crack of memory. Harold Ward in his workshop, calling him the only one with patience to build slow. Marcus steadied himself. Slow work lasts. Adrian spoke up quickly, trying to regain control. Sir, about my pending promotion? Evelyn slid a folder toward Marcus before Adrian could finish. That decision's under review. Adrian's grin faltered. Under review? I've led 3 profitable contracts this year. Marcus regarded him evenly. Profit can't outweigh integrity. Let's finish the quarter before we celebrate titles. The meeting ended in silence. When the room cleared, Evelyn murmured. That rattled him. He'll rattle louder soon, Marcus replied. He picked up his cane, rising slowly but steadily. Let him think the floor's still solid. That evening, Adrian stormed into the penthouse, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frames on the wall. Vanessa looked up from the sofa, startled. What happened? They froze my promotion, he snapped. After months of kissing every board member's... He stopped himself, pacing. It's him, Marcus Ward. He's back. He's the CEO. The name hit Vanessa like a slap. She tried to laugh, failed. You're joking. Adrian turned. Do I look like I'm joking? Your crippled husband owns the company I work for. Evelyn's been covering for him all this time. She gripped the armrest, knuckles white. But that can't be. He's broke. He's not broke. Adrian poured a drink, hands shaking. He's worth hundreds of millions, apparently, which means the condo, the cards, everything. He could take it all if he wanted to. Including my job. Vanessa stared at him, mind spinning. Images flashed. Marcus sitting in that wheelchair whispering, be careful who you call your future. She'd laughed then. Now the echo made her skin crawl. "Adrian," she said quietly, "we have to fix this." He looked at her, eyes cold. "You mean you have to fix this? You're the one who knows him." "What are you saying?" "Call him, make peace. Cry if you have to." His tone turned sharp. "Because if he sinks me, I'm not going down alone." Vanessa flinched. "You're unbelievable." "No, I'm realistic." He drained the glass. "Find out what he wants." When he left the room, she sank into the couch, the city lights beyond the window shimmering like broken glass. For the first time since she'd moved in, the view looked dangerous. Meanwhile, in a quiet house miles away, Marcus sat in the dim light of his study. Jordan slept upstairs. Olivia had just left after another evening of therapy. On the desk before him lay two items, his son's bridge project and an email draft addressed to the board. He reread the subject line. Reorganization of executive management. His finger hovered over send, but he waited. Patience had always been his weapon. He closed the laptop and looked at the bridge model instead, tracing one of the wooden beams with his fingertip. When Jordan had built it, the glue hadn't held at first. Each segment collapsed until they doubled the supports. Marcus remembered how the boy had said, "Sometimes you have to break it again before it stands." The words replayed in his mind as thunder rolled somewhere beyond the city. He smiled faintly, whispering, "Exactly." The next morning, a courier delivered a letter to the Cole penthouse addressed to Ms. Vanessa Ward. The handwriting was clean, deliberate. Inside was a single line on Ward Technologies' letterhead. "You once said you couldn't feed a cripple. Now you dine on his payroll." No signature, just the company seal embossed at the bottom. Vanessa's hands trembled as she read it. Adrian snatched it away, eyes widening. "He's playing games." She shook her head. "No, he's warning us." Outside, rain began again, steady and cold, drumming against the glass. In the distance, a lightning flash illuminated the skyline. Bright, brief, merciless. The first storm had come the night she left him. This one carried his name. Back at headquarters, Evelyn entered Marcus's office quietly. "The audit's underway. Within 2 weeks, Adrian's falsified accounts will surface." Marcus looked out over the rain-streaked windows. "Good. When they do, make sure every executive knows whose signature approved them. Hers." Evelyn hesitated. "You're sure you want her exposed publicly?" He nodded. "She destroyed my life in daylight. Let the daylight finish her." He turned back to the city, eyes steady, voice low but certain. "This isn't revenge anymore, Evelyn. It's restoration." Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time, echoing through the skyline as if the city itself had begun to listen. The ballroom shimmered under chandeliers that threw light across gold-draped tables and crystal centerpieces. Every corner of the hall hummed with power. Politicians, tech investors, and the elite of Dallas's business world gathered to celebrate Ward Technologies' 10th anniversary. Vanessa adjusted the strap of her emerald gown in front of the mirror, heart pounding harder than she wanted to admit. Adrian fastened his cufflinks beside her. "Tonight fixes everything," he said. "Once they announce my promotion, we'll finally be untouchable." She forced a smile. "You're sure?" "Completely." He checked his reflection, confidence radiating like armor. "The CEO's supposed to make an appearance. I'll be the one shaking his hand. We'll be photographed together. That's power, babe." Vanessa nodded, but something in her chest twisted. She hadn't slept in 2 days. The letter from Marcus still lay hidden in her vanity drawer, its single sentence haunting her. "You once said you couldn't feed a cripple. Now you dine on his payroll." Every time she read it, she heard his voice again, calm and unbroken. The chauffeur pulled up to the grand hall. Cameras flashed as they stepped out. Vanessa's smile held steady. Her hand rested lightly on Adrian's arm, but he barely noticed. Inside, a jazz band played soft blues, and waiters glided through the crowd with champagne flutes. The air smelled of perfume and ambition. Adrian greeted colleagues, laughter loud and practiced. Vanessa scanned the room. Evelyn Grant stood near the stage, serene in a black dress, clipboard in hand. Their eyes met for a fleeting second. Evelyn's smile was polite, too polite. Vanessa looked away quickly. She found her reflection in a mirrored column, poised, beautiful, successful. and hated it, because beneath that image, she knew everything she'd built rested on another man's silence. The lights dimmed. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses as we welcome the visionary behind Ward Technologies' resurgence, our CEO, Mr. Marcus Ward. The sound of his name turned the air electric. Vanessa's fingers froze around her glass. Adrian's grin faltered, his eyes snapping to the stage. A spotlight cut through the dark. And there he was. Marcus stepped onto the stage slowly, cane in hand, tailored black tuxedo fitting his frame perfectly. His movements were careful but steady. Every step defied the pity they'd left him with. The crowd erupted in applause, half in celebration, half in shock. He smiled faintly, nodding toward the audience. Thank you. It's an honor to stand before you again. Literally. Soft laughter rippled through the room. Vanessa's knees nearly gave out. Adrian grabbed her wrist. Don't move, he hissed. Marcus continued. 10 years ago, my uncle built this company on integrity and endurance. He believed failure teaches more than success ever could. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. His gaze drifted toward the crowd, pausing for the briefest heartbeat on Vanessa. Sometimes life breaks you so it can rebuild what should have existed all along. Evelyn stepped forward, handing him a folder. Before we toast, Marcus said, a few recognitions are overdue. The projector behind him flickered to life. Financial charts, company divisions, photos of key employees. Adrian's name appeared on screen, underlined in red. Mr. Adrian Cole, Marcus said, voice calm, has been one of our most visible managers. His performance reports are impressive until you look closely. You'll notice discrepancies between project expenditures and vendor payouts. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Adrian's jaw tightened. Marcus, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Marcus said, his tone sharpening just enough. Our investors deserve transparency. He gestured toward Evelyn, who handed out printed documents to several board members in the front row. Independent auditors confirmed the misuse of company funds through shell accounts registered under Mr. Cole and an associate, Ms. Vanessa Ward. The room gasped. Cameras flashed. Vanessa's glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the floor. Champagne spread across the marble like a stain. Marcus didn't look at her. Both accounts have been frozen. Legal proceedings begin tomorrow. Adrian shot to his feet. You can't prove. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos, steady and quiet. You really should have checked whose name was on the bank before you started stealing from it. Security moved in. The crowd parted, whispering, phones raised. Vanessa stood motionless, face pale, mascara streaking down her cheek as Adrian was escorted out. She felt every camera lens like heat on her skin. Marcus's eyes met hers only once. No hatred, no triumph, just distance. He raised his glass toward the audience, to endurance, to lessons learned, and to the truth, because it always finds its way home. The crowd applauded, hesitant at first, then louder. Vanessa slipped away through a side door, the echo of his cane following her down the corridor like a verdict. Outside, the night air hit her lungs like punishment. She stumbled into the parking lot, tears blurring the world into streaks of gold and black. She could still hear the music inside, the laughter, the applause that once belonged to her world. Her phone buzzed, dozens of notifications, headlines already spreading. CEO exposes cheating couple at company gala. She sank to her knees beside the car, sobbing quietly, the sound swallowed by the city's hum. Above her, the skyline glittered, cold, indifferent, magnificent. Hours later, Marcus sat alone in his office, jacket off, tie loosened. The gala's applause had faded into memory. He looked at a framed photo on his desk, Jordan asleep on his shoulder, years younger. He turned off the lamp and whispered, "That's one storm down." From the window, lightning flickered far over the horizon, distant but moving closer. There were still battles to finish, wounds to heal, a child to protect. But for the first time in years, Marcus Ward didn't feel broken. He felt restored. The courthouse smelled of rain and old paper, the kind of scent that clung to truth no matter how people tried to bury it. Cameras lined the steps outside, flashes slicing the gray morning. Headlines scrolled across every local feed. CEO Marcus Ward exposes fraud at Ward Technologies Gala. Infidelity, embezzlement, and $100 million empire. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with restrained chaos. Adrian sat beside his attorney, pale and exhausted, tie crooked. Vanessa, across the aisle, kept her head low. The emerald dress from the gala had been replaced with a modest navy suit. Her hair, once meticulously styled, hung flat against her shoulders. Every whisper in the gallery felt like a needle. Marcus entered quietly with Evelyn. His black cane clicked once against the tile, and the noise seemed to silence the room. He moved to the plaintiff's table, expression calm, composed, the kind of serenity that comes after surviving fire. Judge Thornton adjusted her glasses. "We're here for two matters, corporate fraud and the custody hearing between Marcus and Vanessa Ward." Her voice carried authority without cruelty. "Let's proceed." Evelyn rose first. "Your Honor, evidence shows that Mr. Cole and Mrs. Ward authorized multiple wire transfers from company accounts to personal holdings. Each transaction traces back to signatures verified through digital and handwritten authentication." She handed a stack of documents to the clerk. The judge flipped through them, frowning. Adrian's lawyer tried to speak. "Your Honor, my client has already admitted partial responsibility," Evelyn cut in smoothly. "Emails recovered from his corporate inbox confirm the coordination, but the funds were also used to furnish the residence Mrs. Ward shares with him. She benefited directly." All eyes turned to Vanessa. She swallowed hard, voice trembling. "I didn't know where the money came from. Adrian told me it was a bonus." Evelyn's eyebrow lifted. "Then perhaps you can explain why your name appears on two of the offshore accounts." Vanessa's lips parted, no words forming. Adrian's attorney leaned close, whispering frantically, but the damage was done. The judge marked something in her notes. Marcus didn't speak. He didn't have to. His stillness said more than any argument could. For months he lived in silence while she mocked his weakness. Now, that silence was the very thing dismantling her defense. When the session adjourned for a short recess, Vanessa followed Marcus into the hallway. "Please," she whispered, "can we talk?" He turned, eyes steady. "We're talking." "I never meant—" "You meant everything you said," he interrupted gently. "You just didn't think it would echo back this loud." Tears welled in her eyes. "Marcus, they're going to take Jordan from me." He looked at her for a long moment, voice soft. "You took him from me the day you walked out. I just didn't know it yet." A reporter's flash bulb burst behind them. Vanessa turned away, shielding her face. Marcus didn't flinch. The final session began after lunch. The courtroom filled again. Evelyn presented one last document, Marcus's financial disclosure. "Your Honor, contrary to Mrs. Ward's claims of neglect, Mr. Ward's estate holds more than sufficient resources to provide for his son. He also maintains a stable residence and ongoing physical rehabilitation progress." Vanessa's attorney tried to object, but Judge Thornton raised a hand. "Enough. I've reviewed the evidence." Her gaze swept the room. "Mr. Cole, your actions constitute corporate fraud and will be handled in criminal court. Mrs. Ward, you are complicit by association and will repay restitution as determined by the Civil Division. Custody of Jordan Ward is hereby granted to his father." The gavel struck once, sharp as thunder. The sound seemed to collapse something inside Vanessa. Her shoulders slumped, her breath catching on a sob she tried to swallow. Marcus stood, thanking the court with a quiet nod. Reporters surged as soon as he stepped into the corridor. Microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Ward, do you have a statement?" He paused. "Only this. Don't confuse silence with weakness. Some of us rebuild quietly." Cameras clicked, capturing the moment. The once broken man standing tall, walking with measured steps through the swarm. Behind him, Vanessa emerged from the courtroom escorted by her lawyer, eyes hollow. A reporter called her name, but she didn't answer. For the first time, she understood what true exposure felt like. No spotlight, no applause, just raw daylight revealing everything she'd tried to hide. That evening, Marcus drove home with Jordan asleep in the back seat, the boy's small hand curled around his favorite toy car. The city lights reflected off the windshield like 1,000 tiny suns. At a red light, Marcus glanced at his son in the mirror and whispered, "We're finally free." He didn't notice the billboard across the intersection until the light turned green. A new Ward Technologies campaign, his company's logo rising behind the words, "Built to Endure." It wasn't just advertising anymore. It was truth carved into glass. He smiled faintly and drove on, the skyline gleaming like redemption. Across town, Vanessa sat alone in her now empty penthouse. Adrian had vanished hours earlier, his accounts frozen, his phone off. The champagne glasses from the gala still lay broken near the balcony door. She picked up one shard, staring at her reflection warped in the glass. In the silence, she heard Marcus's voice again. "You walked away from a cripple. One day you'll kneel before the man you left behind." Her knees buckled. The shard fell, joining the others on the floor. At that same hour, Marcus stood by his study window, watching lightning crawl across the horizon. The storm no longer frightened him. It reminded him of survival. Evelyn's text arrived a minute later. "Court filings complete. Cole detained. Ward Technologies officially cleared." Marcus typed back, "Thank you. Let's close the books." He looked toward the stairs where Jordan's laughter drifted faintly from his room. The sound softened his expression. "Restoration," he whispered, "not revenge." But somewhere deep inside, the quiet satisfaction still burned, the knowledge that justice, when done cleanly, could sound exactly like peace. The night hung heavy over Highland Park, the kind of quiet that only existed after storms. The Ward mansion stood bathed in soft amber light from the garden lamps, the rain having left the driveway glistening like polished stone. Somewhere in the distance, cicadas hummed their tired song. Marcus sat in his study, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled, a pen between his fingers. Across his desk lay the final documents from Evelyn, corporate sign-offs, custody confirmations, and the closing statement of the Cole case. He'd expected satisfaction, but what he felt instead was stillness, the kind that comes after surviving both grief and war. A knock came at the door, 2 knocks, hesitant, trembling. His security guard appeared in the doorway. "Sir, there's someone outside. She says she needs to see you." Marcus didn't ask who. He already knew. "Let her in," he said quietly. Vanessa entered moments later, drenched from the drizzle, her once luxurious curls plastered to her face. The navy suit she'd worn to court was creased and damp. She clutched her purse like it contained the last of her pride. For a long moment she stood there, her eyes darting around the study, the mahogany shelves, the leather-bound books, the faint scent of cedar and whiskey. This was the same room she'd once mocked as his little hobby corner. Now it looked like power itself. "Marcus," she whispered, "please, can we talk?" He gestured toward the chair across from him. "You're already here." She sat trembling. "I've lost everything. The apartment's gone. Adrian's gone. My accounts are frozen. I can't even access my cards." He said nothing. His silence filled the room like air, thick with judgment. "I made mistakes," she continued, voice cracking. "I was angry, scared. I thought you'd given up. I didn't know you'd—" "Survive?" Marcus finished for her, his tone calm. She nodded, eyes wet. "You have every right to hate me, but please, I'm begging you, don't take Jordan from me. He's all I have left." Marcus's gaze softened briefly, then steadied. "Jordan was always mine. You just stopped being his mother when you traded him for status." Vanessa's lip quivered. "Marcus, I didn't mean—" He leaned forward slightly, voice low but sharp. "You didn't mean to laugh when you poured wine on me at that dinner? You didn't mean to tell people I was useless? You didn't mean to sign contracts that helped your lover steal from my company? Tell me, Vanessa, how many mistakes make a choice?" Her breath hitched. "I don't want your money. I don't want anything. I just—" Marcus reached into a drawer and placed an envelope on the desk. The sound of paper sliding across wood cut her off. She frowned, hesitating. "What's that?" "Your settlement." Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a check. The amount written, 1.1. Her eyes widened. This is a joke." "No," Marcus said softly. It's exact. That's what your love was worth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You can't do this to me. I already did nothing to you, he replied. That's what destroyed you. I didn't fight back when you left. I didn't beg when you lied. I just waited. And while you were burning everything we built, I rebuilt everything you burned. She pressed her hands to her face, sobbing. Please, I'll do anything. Just help me start over. Marcus's expression stayed calm, his voice measured. Start over? That's the one thing I am giving you. You can walk away. Free, no debt, no prison, just emptiness. That's more mercy than you ever gave me. Vanessa looked around the room again. The neat desk, the glowing monitors showing Ward Technologies' logo, the framed photo of Jordan on the bookshelf. Her gaze lingered on it, tears streaming freely now. He looks happy. He is, Marcus said quietly, because he's surrounded by truth now. It's cleaner than comfort. For a long moment, only the rain filled the silence. Then Marcus stood, using his cane, but no longer leaning heavily on it. His movements were deliberate, steady, stronger than she remembered. He walked to the door and opened it. Good night, Vanessa. She didn't move. You're just going to let me walk away? Marcus met her eyes, those same eyes that once looked at him with love, then pity, then disgust. Now, they only reflected loss. I'm not letting you walk away, he said softly. I'm reminding you how. She stood, trembling, clutching the $1 check in her hand. You'll regret this. He smiled faintly. You already said that once, and here we are. She stepped outside. The rain caught her hair again, washing through her mascara. Marcus watched through the window as she walked down the driveway, her figure shrinking beneath the glow of the garden lights. The gate closed automatically behind her with a metallic sigh. Inside, Marcus turned back to his desk. He picked up the family photo from years ago, the three of them laughing by the lake, sunlight on their faces. He looked at it for a long time before quietly placing it into a drawer and closing it for good. The storm outside deepened, thunder rolling over the hills. Marcus poured a small glass of scotch, raised it slightly and whispered to himself, closure. Then he turned off the light. Autumn came early that year, the kind of crisp air that made Dallas mornings smell of rain and cut grass. The Ward mansion no longer felt cavernous. Laughter now lived in its corners, Jordan's mostly, mixed with the whir of toy cars racing across the hallway floors. Marcus stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, guiding his son through a pancake recipe. No lumps, he said, smiling. Smooth batter, even pour. Jordan grinned. Like a bridge. Balance on both sides. The line hit Marcus harder than he expected. Like a bridge. The model still sat on the shelf in his study, repaired and straightened with new supports, each wooden beam perfectly aligned. He'd left it there as a reminder. Some things break only to show you where the weakness was. Olivia entered from the back patio, sunlight at her shoulders. You two are turning the kitchen into a lab, she teased. Jordan laughed. Dad's teaching me engineering through pancakes. Marcus wiped his hands. Every design needs fuel. He glanced toward Olivia, the unspoken gratitude clear between them. In her quiet strength, he'd found something softer than triumph. Peace without performance. Later that day, after Jordan left for school, Olivia packed her therapy kit. You don't need these sessions much longer, she said. You walk better than most people who've never been injured. Marcus leaned against the counter, weight even on both legs. Walking isn't what I needed help with. She met his gaze. I know. Her smile was small, honest. Try not to live in battles that are already won. He nodded, watching her drive away through the golden light. Across town, Vanessa sat on a park bench overlooking Turtle Creek. The wind played with the wilted edges of a classified section in her lap. Apartment listings circled in red. The diamond she once flaunted was gone, pawned for rent and groceries. A mother and child walked past hand in hand, laughter trailing behind them. Vanessa looked away quickly, swallowing the ache that rose uninvited. She'd tried calling Jordan last week. Evelyn had answered instead, polite but firm. Contact will be reconsidered after counseling. Counseling. The word stung worse than any insult. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Ward Technologies expands to Austin and Nairobi under CEO Marcus Ward. A photograph accompanied it. Marcus shaking hands with investors, confident, upright, smiling. She stared at the image until it blurred. The man she'd left behind had become the version she'd always demanded, just without her in it. A gust lifted the newspaper from her lap. She didn't chase it. That evening, Marcus walked along the lakeshore behind his home. The sun sank low, turning the water copper. Jordan skipped stones beside him, counting splashes. "Dad," the boy said suddenly, "are you still mad at Mom?" Marcus hesitated, then answered truthfully, "No, I'm just done being hurt." Jordan looked up. "Will she ever come home?" Marcus crouched, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "Home isn't always where people live, buddy. Sometimes it's where they learn to be better. Maybe she'll find hers someday." The boy nodded, thoughtful. The wind caught his hair. For a second, Marcus saw both of them years from now. Taller, stronger, unbroken. When they headed back, the lights of the house glowed through the trees. The sound of Olivia's car in the driveway, the scent of dinner already on the stove, the kind of ordinary peace he'd once thought impossible. Later that night, alone in his study, Marcus opened the bottom drawer and took out the family photograph he'd hidden weeks earlier. The edges were slightly bent, the smiles frozen in another life. He looked at it a moment longer, then slipped it into an envelope and wrote one word across the front: closure. He sealed it and placed it in a box labeled archive. Personal, not trash, not memory, just finished. He turned off the lamp, the room dim except for moonlight glinting on the repaired bridge model. Its span cast a small shadow across the desk, a perfect arc from one side to the other. Marcus traced it with his fingertip and whispered, "Balanced." In a modest motel on the city's edge, Vanessa stared out at the same moon through rain-spattered glass. The $1 check lay on the nightstand beside her, edges worn from handling. She kept it not out of anger, but as proof that choices have currency. The television played a late-night business report. Marcus Ward's philanthropic division to fund scholarships for children of disabled parents. She listened until the commercial faded, then shut it off. The silence left her staring at her reflection in the darkened screen. Older, smaller, humbled. Outside, thunder rolled faintly, but this time it didn't scare her. It sounded almost like forgiveness, distant but real. Spring returned to Dallas with the color of beginnings. The sky over White Rock Lake gleamed a soft blue, and banners bearing the Ward Foundation emblem rippled in the breeze. Rows of guests filled the open-air pavilion: executives, city officials, students, journalists. Cameras clicked as a familiar figure moved toward the podium, walking with measured confidence. Marcus no longer used the cane, except as memory. It rested beside him like an old companion. Jordan stood at his side in a small gray suit, clutching a folded program that read, "Harold Ward Memorial Innovation Center. Grand opening." Marcus adjusted the microphone. "My uncle once said buildings are just stories written in steel. They stand or fall depending on the truth inside their foundation. Today we build one for those who think they've already fallen." Applause rose, genuine and warm. Behind him, banners displayed renderings of the new facility: labs for disabled inventors, scholarships for children of injured workers, design studios for students. Olivia watched from the front row, pride flickering in her smile. Evelyn stood beside her, discreetly wiping at the corner of her eye. Marcus looked down at Jordan. "This center is yours too. Someday you'll add your chapter." Jordan whispered, "Grandpa would be proud." Marcus's throat tightened. He'd say we finally learned what endurance means. After the ribbon cutting, the crowd dispersed into sunlight and laughter. Reporters gathered near Marcus, but he waved them off gently. "No statements today. Let the building speak." He turned toward Olivia, who held out 2 cups of lemonade. "No whiskey for a day like this?" she teased. He smiled. "Whiskey's for endings. This is for beginnings." They walked toward the lake where the breeze carried the scent of new grass. Jordan ran ahead, skipping stones, each one skimming the water in widening circles. Marcus watched him and said quietly, Do you ever wonder if we had to break first to get here? Olivia nodded. Sometimes breaking is just the sound of rearranging. He looked at her, at the horizon, at the reflection of the center's glass walls catching sunlight across the water. For the first time, the light didn't look like judgment. It looked like promise. Across the city, Vanessa stepped out of a bus on her way to a job interview at a local design firm. The morning sun was bright, unforgiving, but she didn't shy away from it anymore. She carried a worn portfolio under one arm and a cheap handbag over her shoulder. On the sidewalk, a newspaper vending machine displayed a headline she couldn't ignore. Ward Foundation launches Innovation Center for Disabled Inventors. She stared at the photograph, Marcus smiling beside Jordan, and felt no hatred, only the ache of recognition. Then she straightened her blazer, breathed in, and walked toward the door. Inside, the receptionist greeted her kindly. Vanessa smiled back, small but sincere. It wasn't redemption yet, but it was the first honest step toward one. That evening, the sun folded behind the skyline, turning the windows of the new center to molten gold. Marcus stood alone on the balcony above the lake, wind in his hair, the city humming below. He took a quiet breath, feeling the air fill his lungs evenly, his balance sure beneath him. In his hand, he held the old $1 check. He'd kept it not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof of distance, how far a man could travel without bitterness. He tore it neatly in half and let the pieces drift into the water. They floated for a moment, then sank, ripples spreading outward until the surface was smooth again. Behind him, Jordan called, "Dad, come on!" Marcus turned, smiling. "Coming, buddy." They walked toward the car together. The headlights flared to life, cutting through the twilight, tracing a long, steady path home. The storm was over. The bridge held. And the man the world once pitied had learned to build again. Not from anger, but from grace.